Was that the high sign? Oh, good to know. All right. I call the regular meeting of the Milliken Board of Trustees for July 10th, 2024 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some patriotic music to go with that? Very nice. All right, will the town clerk please call roll?
Trustee Beckman? Here. Trustee Lane?
Here.
Trustee Nix?
Here.
Trustee Orcutt?
Here.
Trustee Wakeman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Here.
Mayor Austin?
Here. Thank you. Does anyone have any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Orcutt?
Yes.
Trustee Nix?
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman?
Yes.
Trustee Beckman? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Yes.
Mayor Austin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens' comments? This is the point in the agenda which anybody wishes to address the board can do so. No takers on that one. All right, we'll skip right over citizens' comment and go to my very favorite part of the agenda. We have a new officer in town. So we will start with the swearing in of our new police officer from Chief Garcia and Town Clerk Weinbarger.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody who's here, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, we want to introduce to you our newest officer. Addition, his name is Arnulfo Quiroz. Arnulfo graduated from Ames Community College in 2022, where he received his associate's degree in criminal justice. Later, he graduated from the Arapahoe Community College Police Academy in December of 2023. Currently resides in Greeley with his wife, Anel, and his three boys, Alec, Alan, and Andres. So.
Okay.
All right, could you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Arnulfo Quiroz,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and enforce
that I will support and enforce
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
and the state of Colorado
and the state of Colorado
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the town of Milliken,
of the town of Milliken,
and shall faithfully perform,
and shall faithfully perform,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
for the town of Milliken.
for the town of Milliken.
Congratulations.
Oh, not so fast. He has to go the round.
It's a tradition.
Welcome aboard. And we can tell Logan's happy to have you on board. It's okay. All righty, welcome aboard and nice to see your family with us tonight. All righty, now we'll go on to police officer promotions, another favorite part of mine, and I'm seeing two of our fine officers in town here. So Chief Garcia, please take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight we'll be promoting Officer Spreitzer and Officer Flores to sergeants. The process to get them here was tough. It was a thorough process. They both came out on top as the top two in the sergeant's assessment. Officer Spreitzer and Officer Flores will bring a wealth of knowledge and leadership to our organization. As the next leaders in this organization, I have full faith and trust that they will perform the duties of sergeant with pride, professionalism, and a caring attitude for those that they lead. Leadership is an ongoing process, and today is the beginning of their leadership journey for both Officer Flores and Spreitzer, and we look forward to that continued process as they move forward to the next level in their law enforcement careers. So we'll start with Officer Spreitzer. I state your name.
I, Joel Spreitzer,
Do solemnly swear and reaffirm
do solemnly swear and reaffirm
that I will perform and support the laws and Constitution of the United States of America. That I will perform and support the laws
that I will perform and support the laws
and Constitution of the United States of America,
and the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Colorado,
the state of Colorado,
the ordinance of the town of Milliken,
the ordinance of the town of Milliken.
and that I will faithfully perform
I will faithfully perform
the duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department,
the duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department,
to which I have been promoted.
to which I have been promoted.
I want to be the first to welcome Sergeant Spreitzer. Congratulations. Sergeant, welcome.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
You got them. I state your name. I state your name.
Motion denied. No.
Solemnly swear and reaffirm. Do solemnly swear and reaffirm. That I will perform and support the laws. That I will perform and support the laws. Constitution of the United States of America. Constitution of the United States of America. The state of Colorado. State of Colorado. The ordinance of the town of Milliken. The ordinance of the town of Milliken. And that I will faithfully perform. And that I will faithfully perform. The duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department. The duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department. The duties. Go ahead, please. The duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department. The duties of sergeant for the Milliken Police Department. To which I have been promoted. To which I have been promoted.
No workers' comp tonight. If you stuck them, we'll know it. Sergeant Flores, I do need to notify you of something.
You're in trouble now already.
Sergeant, I have a little notification for you before I shake your hand.
Yes.
I no longer have the silver car, I have a blue car for the next time you pull me over.
Thank you, Mayor.
That's very great. So, welcome to those who are new, and congratulations to those who got promoted. So, we do appreciate your service in a very difficult job to perform. So, truly, thank you very much. All righty. Now, going on with the rest of the meeting. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes of June 26, 2024? None? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the minutes from June 26th.
I second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Orcutt,
Yes.
trustee Nix,
Yes.
trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
trustee Beckman,
Yes.
trustee Lane,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. And next up is the town administrator's report. Administrator Powell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and trustees. So the project on County Road 46 is complete, and it is incredible to drive on. I drove on it today, both directions, and so I would suggest everybody give it a test run. So it is
I have already. It's
far
nice.
improved.
It's
Yes.
really nice, yeah.
So, great job to our streets department for getting this taken care of. The exterior walls on the Ehrlich Lake Pump Station will be poured this Friday, so progress is continuing on that as well. The Parks Department has been completing the native mow around town, which there's plenty of. They've been cleaning the landscape rocks at the Centennial Lake parking lot. If you're wondering why these kids are out there taking all the rock out, washing them and putting them back. So it's not a punishment. This is a true thing. And they're also mowing and cleaning out the Pheasant Hills detention pond to keep that free and clear of debris, so. I had a meeting Thursday, June 25th, with Weld County and Via Transportation. It is still hopeful, and it sounds very hopeful, that Milliken will receive transportation services beginning sometime this month. The approximate cost of the town for a year will be $13,456 for these services. A budget appropriation will be presented to the town board at our July 24th meeting. And at that time, I'm hoping to have an agreement for these services to present to you. I will also have an updated project list to the town board by our work session on July 24th. I am completing the draft after going back and forth a few times with Platteville, and we'll be handing that out to the board at a work session on July 24th as well. So things are moving ahead. Lots of projects going to be happening still. So we're still waiting to hear about our DOLA presentation that happened at the last, what was that, June 26th, up in Montrose. So fingers crossed on that. That's regarding the alluvial well blending process. So that's what I have. I'm very proud of those guys, and just honestly, they've been with us for quite a while, and it's nice to see promotion from within, so.
Thank you
Any
for,
questions?
Thank you for doing the transportation and like really taking that on and getting that going. When we have that done, will we reach out to that woman that came and spoke to us to let her know that?
I definitely will. I don't know if I have her information, Carrie may have it, but the gentleman that was here as well, I do have his because I believe trustee Wakeman and I were emailing him on that.
So a lady lives at 101 South Laura.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Kathleen?
Kathleen,
I know how to get a hold of her.
Okay, but as soon as we do have those, we will promote it heavily.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I just am waiting for this agreement.
No, for sure.
And our hope is too, so the other municipality that hadn't joined when we didn't join was Severance. And so I reached out to their town manager there, who also serves on an advisory committee that I'm on. And he's meeting with them next Tuesday.
Okay.
So the more municipalities we have on could lessen the cost. So at this point in time, I'm seeing at the top end is the amount that I just stated to you. If Severance does decide to join on, it may reduce that amount. So
I think it's really important for like our citizens to know that like we do hear them. And so like, you know, getting back to them and like if you do come and speak to us, like we do listen and we do want to help, you know?
Sure.
So I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to. It's nice to give good news.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
When would the service start upon the agreement?
Well,
Did I miss that, or? I was just
it
curious.
may start sooner.
Oh, okay.
Because we were hoping to have the next bus deployed by July 15th. It just depends on how sure they are of this, and it's up to you on the 24th. We did have to go through the steps that we need to in order to make sure we do have the funds available and have that agreement in hand. They are hoping to have a draft agreement to me by tomorrow, and that way I could send it forward to our attorney to have him review. And so it would have to be back, I believe, in my hands by the 18th in order to have the packet for the 24th. And they know this, so. Yeah, I'm excited.
Any other questions? Good job. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we do not have any consent agenda items, so we'll move on to the action agenda. And the first item is approval of the 2023 audited financial statements. Wade Nickerson, Finance Director.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. This action item is the approval of the 2023 financial audit. Every year we do an annual audit. We bring in an independent audit firm to do that. This year it's a Haney and Company. They've done this. This will be their third year. They've done this last couple years also. And tonight here to explain all of these statements to you and give you the highlights of it. We have Abby Irvine with Haney and Company. She's the audit manager, so I'll let her take over.
Is this the presentation? Just go forward?
Yeah, just there.
Very good. All right. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board, for having me here tonight. Again, my name is Abby Irvine. I'm here to just go over the 2023 audit with the Board. I'm not going to go through the whole audit in detail, but I'll cover it at a high level. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. Just a quick kind of agenda of what I plan to cover. I'll go through the members of the audit team, provide our contact information, kind of go through a high level of what the audit process entails, walk through the financial statements, very high level, just to kind of go over what different financial statements are included in the packet that you've been provided, or the report that you've been provided. Go through required communications, audit adjustments, and then some new accounting standards. So the engagement team for Haney and Company, we had a whole team here. We actually come and do some procedures at the end of every year, and then we come in April and do some more procedures. And so we're in your hair for a little bit, but certainly want to thank everyone for their time and just providing information for us in a timely manner and answering our questions. So my contact information is up there, as well as Ty Holman. He's the audit partner. I'm the audit manager with Haney and Company. Just the audit process itself, I'll go through that kind of high level. So starts with our planning process. So we go through a process where we plan out the procedures that we're going to perform with the ultimate goal of providing the opinion over the financial statements. And so we go through a process of planning, a risk assessment process. We take a risk-based approach to what we do. So what that means is that we're targeting certain areas that we deem to be a little bit more kind of high risk from an accounting standpoint, and dig into those a little bit deeper. We establish kind of thresholds for amounts that we're going to look at. We go through a process of walkthroughs, which is basically just obtaining an understanding of policy, procedure, kind of who does what in the town. From that, we're going to develop our audit approach. We're going to determine the kind of areas of the financial statements that we're going to look at in detail, determine which areas we're going to test. So we do that on a sample basis. We don't test everything. We don't look at everything, but we look at areas that we deem to be significant enough that we need to dig into. And that requires judgment. we perform field work. That's coming in and looking at individual transactions, invoices, things like that, agreements, make sure that everything looks to be in order, things are recorded the way that they should be in accordance with standards that we're required to follow. And then the end result is going to be the report, the financial statements, and then the opinion and the notes. And so you have a copy of that draft report in your packet. And included in that is the audit opinion, which is kind of the result of all of our work. Everything looks in order, looks good, then we issue an audit opinion over the financial statements. So as far as status goes, you do have a draft of the financial statements and the audit. Assuming the audit is accepted, we can move forward with finalizing that. It is by statute required to be filed with the state of Colorado by the end of July. So we've got a few weeks now to be able to get that finalized and submitted. So we will be issuing an unmodified or a clean opinion over the financial statements. So that's good. That's the goal, is to get to this point. We are required to perform an audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So we have certain standards that we have to follow in order to provide this opinion. And then the objective of the audit is to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement by obtaining appropriate and sufficient audit evidence to provide a basis for our opinion. So that just means that, again, as I mentioned, we don't audit everything, but we have to audit enough that we feel comfortable that we can provide an opinion over the financial statements based on the procedures that we perform. I'm going to go through just a high-level financial statement walkthrough. So this is just graphically going to demonstrate the financial statements, how they work together, interplay with each other. There's definitely multiple sets of financial statements within the packet. I took this out of there's a new accounting standard that's going to go into just a little bit deeper dive into financial reporting. And so I think this is just a really good graphic that demonstrates how different areas of the financial statements are presented. And so they're broken out into various components. There's going to be the governmental activities, the business type activities. So those are going to be the proprietary funds or the business type funds. Governmental activities are going to be all the funds of the town, your general fund, capital projects, debt service, things like that. A discretely presented component unit is an accounting term for an entity that's required to be reported in your financial statements. So that's going to be the Milliken Housing Authority. So that one's also included in your financial statements. You don't have any fiduciary activities, so you can ignore that over on the far right. But essentially this lays out that there's, starting at the top, there's going to be less detail going into more detail as you go down. So you start with the activities as a whole. So you take the town activities and you group it all together into the statements of net position and statements of activities. Then you're going to move down into more detail by going into fund statements and individual statements on the business type side. You've also got financial statement footnotes, which then explain in more detail what the accounting policies are and what's behind the numbers on the financial statements. So I just thought this was a really good graphic without going into detail. You have the financial statements in the packet. You've got the management discussion and analysis, which kind of goes into that in a little bit more detail. But I just thought this was a really good visual to kind of show the financial statements, what they represent, how they are kind of broken out into individual pieces, and then kind of going down the line, going from higher detail to more detail, and going down. So from an audit standpoint, we are required to provide an opinion on each kind of segment that you see here. So we're going to look at the town as a whole. We're going to look at the individual activities of the governmental side. We're going to look at the individual funds on the business type side. And then the component unit, which is the housing authority, we have to look at that individually as well and provide an opinion on all of them individually and then as a whole. Significant areas of focus. Just our goal is to express an opinion, as I've mentioned, on major funds, other funds collectively, the housing authority, the activities of the town as a whole. And so we do that. We have to focus on certain key areas. One of those areas is going to be areas that are subject to estimate, just because inherently they're a little bit more difficult to value or difficult to audit. And so we're going to look at that. New or significant balances. As we get more into the presentation, I'll talk about some of the newer areas this year. Revenue recognition, that's just always going to be a default for any auditor, that we have to look at areas of revenue, whether or not they're recognized properly in the right period. So we dig into that pretty deep. And then because they're usually large and there's a lot of activity, capital assets, you have a lot of projects going on, so we're going to be digging into those. And then the related debt associated with those assets. As part of the audit report, there's going to be notes and supplemental info. So we just wanted to point out that the accounting policies, again, those go into more detail about the accounting or the numbers in the financial statements. Those are going to start on note 2. You've got a table summarizing capital asset activity starting in note 6. In note 6. There was some new leased vehicles this year, and then some leased pieces of heavy machinery. So those were some of the activities that that were new this year that we dug into a little bit. Long-term debt's going to be summarized in note 7. Again, that's just going to show activity during the year and any changes. And then there are budget to actual schedules presented throughout the report. For each budget, or for each fund that has a budget developed, there's going to be budget to actual schedules that would show the overall revenues and expenditures compared to budget for the year. All fund expenditures came in below budget for 2023. Next, I'll go through required communications. So at the end of the audit, we always provide a post-audit letter. And so this is a summary of that. We'll provide that as well in written form. So we do look at the town's selection or changes in accounting policies and how they're applied. So last year there was a new accounting standard for leases. It was effective at the beginning of last year, and it basically just requires the capitalization of most leased assets. And so previously you had some leases that you were capitalizing and some that you weren't, and now essentially all of them will be. So those new leased vehicles are going to be captured this year. The leased pieces of machinery are also captured this year. And what that means is that now there's just an asset and a corresponding liability, whereas before, just the lease payments would have gone through and just been reported as expenses. And so there's still expenses associated with them, but the corresponding asset and liability are now also there and called out in schedules. So the financial impact this year, this has again been in effect for 2 years now. This was the second year, was a $375,000 asset that was recorded, and then a $437,000 liability related to that. As part of the accounting process, accounting estimates come into play. So we look at the more significant accounting estimates and just make sure that they're reasonable, that they make sense. So the ones that we look at a little bit closer are going to be depreciable lives. Those are going to be your capital assets. Those are capitalized and then allocated, or depreciation is allocated to them over time. So we just make sure that that looks reasonable and consistent. The town participates in the FPPA pension, and so your portion of the pension is required to be reported in the financial statements of the town. So we just make sure that that gets reported in there accurately. Those measurements are determined by an actuary. So we get a report. We just make sure that the folks that are performing that report are qualified to do that. That they're licensed and qualified to perform those measurements. And then we take the numbers, help put them into the financial statements. And then as part of this new lease accounting standard that was put into place, there is a discount rate that you're required to use to be able to measure the asset and the liability. And so we make sure that that looks reasonable. These are pretty straightforward because the discount rate is listed in the agreement, but if it wasn't listed in the agreement, you would have to then use an estimate to determine how to measure the asset and the related liability. There were no disagreements as we were going through our audit procedures this year. No difficulties as we were going through the audit. Town staff always does a really good job, and just appreciate Wade and Courtney and the finance team for answering all of our questions and taking over their space for a few days, a couple times a year. As part of finalizing the audit, we will obtain, or we will request that a management representation letter be signed. Once we get that back, we can move forward with finalizing the audit, and then we can file with the state of Colorado. And as far as the audit opinion goes, there is a couple areas of the financials that we just like to call out that the audit opinion doesn't cover necessarily, or doesn't cover in full. So the MD&A, which is the management discussion and analysis, and then pension schedules. So those are required to be included in the report, but we don't offer an opinion over those schedules. We certainly look at them, make sure that they reconcile to the financial statements, that they make sense, but that's not covered under our audit opinion. And then there's some combining schedules, budget schedules, and the local highway finance report, which the state of Colorado requires that we provide a little bit of an opinion on that. So our audit opinion says that, or the audit opinion does cover this, that we just have to look at those in relation to the financial statements themselves. So we're reconciling those and making sure that those are reasonable and consistent in relation to the financial statements as a whole. So there was no single audit this year for the town. So as a reminder, the town received ARPA funding several years ago now. We did talk about whether or not part of the funds this year could be used as a match for a grant that was received. Ultimately, it was determined that that wasn't, the funds weren't going to be used as a match, and so those are still available for future recognition. Right now, the funds are just sitting in deferred revenue, which just means that they need to be matched up with expenditures in the future. You still have a couple of years on those to be able, I think next year you have to, or by the end of this year, you have to obligate them, and then you have to spend them by the end of 26. So that sounds like there's some projects coming up that those will be used for. But just want to point that out, that there is no single audit. And as a reminder, a single audit is just it's a required audit that the federal government requires when you receive federal funding. If you go over $750,000 in any 1 year under federal grants, you're required to have a single audit. Now, when all the ARPA funds were dispersed several years ago, the government came out and said, if you're going over the $750,000 threshold because of the ARPA funding, you can get this alternative audit called an alternative compliance exam, and that is available. So we'll just need to watch in the future to see where you're kind of at with federal expenditures. This year, you did get pretty close. You had one large federal grant that was for a project. I think it was $500,000 that was recognized this year, and then the rest will go into 2024. So if there's more grants that come that push you over the $750,000 threshold, then you will be required to get to receive a single audit. But if you're below the threshold and ARPA puts you over, then we can talk about doing this alternative compliance exam. It's less cost, a little bit less compliance work, and so it's definitely available, and I think it's a good option if you're eligible for it in the future. Audit, just go through kind of some audit adjustments and findings. There were no uncorrected misstatements. All that means is that all the adjustments that we proposed were recorded in the financial statements. There are certain schedules, and we've noticed this every year, that come out of the accounting system that don't agree necessarily to the amounts recorded in the financial statements, but they don't materially misstate the financial statements. It's just something to watch in the future. It's just primarily going to be an accounts payable report that's coming out of Cassell. Just something to watch. If that difference gets bigger and bigger, then we may need to look at either future adjustments or just looking at that report to see, what's causing the difference. We did discuss updates of policies. And that's definitely a best practice that we encourage. I know, I'm not, it was a couple months ago when I was here, you guys talked about adjusting finance or purchasing thresholds, increasing those, and that's certainly something that I think if that's something that you want to pursue, if you haven't done it already, that it makes sense, just whatever makes sense for the town. I know we audit several municipalities, and recently they have been increasing their purchasing limits, just with the cost of doing business going up every single year. It's something that we have seen, that we see, just make sure it makes sense for the town. I talked about ARPA funding. There was an adjustment for the new trash and recycling company. There was a new company that the town moved to last year, and they bill in advance. The previous company would bill in arrears, and so just that December bill needed to be moved out of expenses into prepaid expenses so that the expenses reported in the correct period. So that was a $36,000 adjustment. We don't deem that to be anything super significant, not an internal control issue or anything like that. Just wanted to point out that we did have that adjustment. And then in terms of the leases and loans, there was loans and leases this year. There was adjustments just to get those amounts categorized into the financial statements. So when you lease equipment or you have a loan on something, you have to report the asset as capital outlay. You have to report the debt as debt in the year that it happens. And so there was some adjustments there just to get the gross amounts reported in the financial statements correctly for financial reporting purposes. The GASB, they're the oversight body who sets accounting policy and accounting standards, which we're required to follow, and the town's required to follow. So there are, luckily, after a couple of years of having some really big changes at the GASB, there's nothing super significant coming up in the next year. The three that are mentioned here, there's only one that could affect the town, and that's going to be a change to the compensated absences standard. Compensated absences is basically accruing vacation time or sick time or paid leave time. So there's just some variance in practice in how that's been reported historically by municipalities, and this is just meant to standardize that measurement. And that'll go into effect as of January 1st of 2024. The impact could be, and I don't think this necessarily is going to have a significant impact to the town, is previously, if you weren't reporting sick time, you may need to do that. I believe you guys are doing that now. And so it shouldn't have a big impact to the town, but definitely just want to look at your leave that's offered, any sort of leave that's earned by employees by the end of the year that has a likelihood of being paid out in the future would then qualify for being reported. And historically, vacation always gets captured, but other types of leave have kind of been not always consistently captured. So that was one of the changes with this standard. There's also some simplifying of the disclosure, which is very unheard of with GASB. They always make things more complicated, so we appreciate the disclosure side of it. The other two, there's certain risk disclosures. They're going to want some expanded risk disclosures. That shouldn't have a significant impact. That's just a disclosure item for the financial statements. And then accounting for changes and error corrections, those don't happen very often. And so there's just, again, a standardization of how they want those recorded. So if there were to be an error correction or an accounting change, that just provides guidance for how to report those. With that comes to the end of the presentation for tonight. Certainly happy to answer any questions if there are any regarding the presentation, the audit report, anything like that.
So you've noted that other towns are raising the limits, the signing limits, and currently our town administrator is at like 15,000. For a town our size, is there a standard that you've noticed going up to in general?
I don't think there's a standard. Again, it's just kind of what works for the town. I mean, I've seen it as high as, and it's tiered. I mean, that's pretty common for what we see. I've seen it as high as 50. But I couldn't tell you off the top of my head at what tier that is. But it's definitely something, and another town that we're auditing is doing the same thing, raising their thresholds.
Okay, so for like our department directors, I was considering establishing a list of repetitive items like ice slicer that we buy.
Sure.
That we know is going to go up to a certain amount, so they can just sign for it.
Mm-hmm.
We know how much it costs. Is that something other towns do, is establish special categories?
It's more common from what I've seen is to have the thresholds by title. So, 10,000 for certain levels, 5,000, 10,000, something like that, and then it goes up from there. I don't think it would be unheard of or uncommon to have individual items called out, especially if they're already budgeted, if you've got, and you're still following it's really just following your procurement process is the important piece that we're looking for. So you're still, getting purchase orders, and if it needs to go out to bid or anything like that, that process is still being followed.
Because I know when we go by ice slicers, that happens to be a common favorite
Right.
thing of ours.
Yep.
It's like $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we go by, or to 25,000 or something like that, so, okay. All right, other than that, I understood the report very well, thank you. Questions from the rest of our board members? Trustee Lane?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Trustee Nix?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Wakeman? She's out there somewhere on. Trustee Wakeman? Are you there?
She's there. I think the presentation's just.
Oh. Any questions?
She's saying. Yeah.
Oh, she's good, okay.
All right.
All right. Trustee Beckman?
No questions, thanks.
Trustee Orcott?
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
No questions.
Okay. Are we accepting this or are we approving it?
You're going to approve this, and then we'll get our management letters signed and all of that, and the final version will be sent to the state, and I will also send that out to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else from the board, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the 2023 financial statement and submit a copy of those statements to the state of Colorado.
I second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Nix?
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman?
Yes.
Trustee Beckman?
Yes.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Orcutt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Yes.
Mayor Austin?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is an ordinance amending portions of the Milliken Municipal Code in regards to business license registrations and door-to-door solicitation permits. Presenting is Matt Gould, Town Attorney, and Carrie Reinbarger, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Austin. You may recall that we discussed a draft of this ordinance a few weeks ago. This was prompted when we got some reports of solicitors not complying with all of the rules, and we took a look at some of the enforcement provisions in our code, the staff has basically drafted some amendments to those provisions to allow for an administrative process and an administrative hearing, both with respect to solicitor permits and business registrations. The other thing that we also are addressing here is compliance with Senate Bill 22-032. That bill places some constraints limiting the town's ability to require business registrations. They call it general business licenses. We call it registrations, where businesses meet certain requirements with respect to state level activity and not having a significant presence in Milliken. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I would point out there's one correction to the memo. It says in the suggested motion, I move to adopt resolution number 816. That's my error. It should have said ordinance number 816.
Okay. Questions from the board, starting with Trustee Wakeman?
No specific questions. I think maybe some of the changes though, I think anyways, correct me if I'm wrong, that you added the ability for people to be reviewed within the town staff before coming to the board, which I thought, if I'm correct here, that was a good addition. My concern mostly was that from a business standpoint, that it's, feels a little threatening, to have to come before the board to find correction. And so, I did like that addition.
Yes, that is correct. We are providing an administrative hearing before the town clerk or his or her designee before the party is forced to go before the board, but they do have an appeal process. And I will say that we did shorten the timelines for the solicitor permits, but we didn't make changes to the timeline for business registrations from the draft that we discussed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. My concern was the general business. Of course, a solicitor doesn't have their entire livelihood hanging on doing business in Milliken, whereas our businesses do. So that was my concern. Appreciate those changes.
Okay. Trustee Beckman?
I don't have any questions.
Trustee Orcutt?
No questions.
Trustee Nix?
No questions.
Trustee Lane?
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
No questions.
And I don't have any. We went over this pretty thoroughly, so I like it. I'll take a motion on the matter.
I move to adopt ordinance number 816, an ordinance of the town of Milliken, Colorado, amending portions of the Milliken Municipal Code in regard to business license registrations and door-to-door solicitation permits.
I second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
Trustee Beckman,
Yes.
Trustee Lane,
Yes.
Trustee Orcutt,
Yes.
Trustee Nix,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to authorize the mayor to sign a professional service agreement with Tate and Associates. Presenting is John Ravis, Streets and Facilities Director.
Good evening. Since the last work session, Lot Holdings has sent over some of their documents that they had. But within those documents, we just couldn't figure out or explain why the stormwater utilities were never installed in the Frontier commercial development. And I tried contacting the engineers on record, and they're no longer in business any longer. So since the work session, I really don't have any other answers for you.
Okay. Isn't it true that this was Hall Irwin and not Lot Holdings that was in business at the time?
No, it actually was Lot Holdings.
Oh, it was Lot
Yeah,
Holdings?
they're on the plans.
Okay. All right, questions from the board, starting with Trustee Lane?
I wonder why they're not in business anymore.
This could explain why.
Yeah.
Trustee Nix?
No questions.
Trustee Orcutt?
No questions.
Trustee Beckman?
No questions.
Trustee Wakeman?
No questions.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
The design fee is $158,000. Do they have an idea of what the construction is going to cost?
Not until we get the design, probably about 50% completed.
Pardon?
Not until we get the design, about 50% completed. Right now, we don't have, an engineer's estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I might?
Please.
So I know it's a chunk of change to be paying for something that we had hoped was done. But the flip side to that is we could end up in a bigger world of hurt if we do not take care of this storm drainage problem. Because there is a company that has the storage ponds behind there that our waters off of this property did infiltrate last year and actually again this year when we had a heavy rain. So that company realizes that we're trying to work through a solution on this. So I do appreciate the board taking consideration on us moving forward regardless of what did not happen 23 years ago.
So Lot Holdings just kind of said, I don't know, sorry.
Well, Lot Holdings worked with Hall Irwin at the
Yeah,
time.
and at the time, that's.
And so, and the companies split.
Yeah.
And so we essentially couldn't get anything.
Right, and at the time that, in 2001 is when Lot Holdings and Harlan kind of split ways there.
And now they're even more split. So, yeah.
And really what it comes down to is we as a town are responsible for knowing what is and isn't completed on a project. So those employees are no longer with us, and, you know, so it's unfortunate, but having good directors and good personnel in place, it is important, and this is how we can see why.
And just to let you know, since then, we actually went ahead and burned up the drainage canal that went to the north of the Public Works facility, and now we're currently pumping it out after each rainstorm.
Okay.
So we're trying to do a short-term solution.
So what is the estimated timeframe for getting the engineering complete and the project started?
Engineering, roughly about 3 to 4 months, and we'd like to get the project started this year yet.
Okay, because it would be better to get it done in the wintertime when
Correct.
ditches aren't running and things are low.
Correct, and once we get going on the design of the project, we're going to see what work we can do in-house just to save on overall costs.
Okay. Next question is for Mr. Nickerson. How are we paying for this, please?
So this, we already asked for a budget amendment to get this project going, and we transferred the money. This is a storm drainage project. We transferred the money from the general fund. We had some excess revenues in the previous year, so we transferred that money to the storm drainage fund to cover the cost of this project.
That is where it's coming from. Okay.
Yes,
Just wanna make
ma'am.
sure. Thank you.
The 600,000
Yes.
over.
What are we projecting the total cost is going to be?
We asked for 750,000, and that would be for the total project. But
150 for the design and
Yes, sir.
600,000 for the,
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
there's what I
and
was-
we don't know if that's going to be enough, but that's.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's what he said. They didn't know yet.
Yeah, we
But
don't really know.
I
but yeah.
wanted to know what kind of scope of project we were thinking it was going to be.
Yeah, and the design is a little more costly than normal on this project, just because of, I think we need permits and that type of stuff. So some of that's going to take longer, take more time, be more involved. So the design is a little higher than it would be on a little more straightforward project. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if we can do some in-house, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for thinking of that. Any other final questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll take a motion on the matter.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign a professional service agreement with Tate & Associates for the design of the Public Works facility drainage improvements for $158,000.
I second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Beckman?
Yes.
Trustee Lane?
Yes.
Trustee Orcutt?
Yes.
Trustee Nix?
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
Yes.
Mayor Austin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is authorization of the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Summit Roofing Solutions LLC, presenting as John Ravis, Streets and Facilities Director.
Good evening. Last year, we had 4 to 5 major leaks at the town hall building. We got those leaks sealed. It took several different coats of sealant to get it done. So we budgeted $40,000 in last year's budget to go ahead and get the roof resealed. The project came in a little bit higher than expected, right around $46,000. And this is just for preventative maintenance items. that we need to do on the building.
Okay. Questions from the board, starting with trustee Wakeman.
No questions.
Trustee Beckman.
No questions, thanks.
Trustee Orcott.
No questions.
Trustee Nix.
No questions.
Trustee Lane.
Is a roof on like a rotating, like 10-year?
It will be.
Or something like that?
Yeah,
So
it wasn't before. We're just assuming that this is the original roof that's on the building.
Okay. So this will be somehow put in the budget?
Yeah, we'll get that in our
going
maintenance
forward?
schedule.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
No questions.
I don't have any questions, so I'll take a motion on the matter.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Summit Roofing Solutions LLC for a roof overlay at Town Hall for $46,500.
Second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Lane,
Yes.
trustee Orcutt,
Yes.
trustee Nix,
Yes.
trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
trustee Beckman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. All right. Next item is the Ehrlich Lake Pump Station Controls Agreement approval. Presenting is Don Stonebrink, Water Wastewater Director.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. This one is for Town Administrator Powell to sign an agreement with Alpine Controls and Engineering for the installation of the Ehrlich Lake Pump Station controls. This will be all the electronics that'll run the station. We had two other estimates that were 2 to 3 times higher than what Alpine Engineering Controls and Engineering estimated. The funds have been appropriated with the original construction of the pump station. Recommendation is that the board will authorize Town Administrator Powell to sign this agreement.
Okay. Questions from the board? Trustee Nix?
They're the best option? So they're the
Yes.
lowest option, but are they the best option?
He is our current SCADA controls person, so he knows the system better than anyone else, which is probably why it was lower.
Yeah, it's a pretty big drop off, so
Yeah.
that makes sense then. Less front end work for him.
Okay. Good question, good answer. Trustee Lane?
So the suggested action should include that at the very end of it for a total of $30,600, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that should be added to the motion?
Agreed.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Okay.
that's okay.
Trustee Wakeman?
No, I think my questions were already answered about the significant difference and it's for the same work.
Okay. Trustee Beckman?
No questions, thanks.
Trustee Orcott?
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean?
My questions were answered on the difference.
Yeah. All right. In that case, we'll let Trustee Lane make the motion since he.
All right, so I move to authorize Town Administrator Cheryl Powell to sign an agreement with Alpine Engineering Command Controls for the installation and programming of the Ehrlich Lake Pump Station controls for a total of $30,600.
Second.
Town clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Orcutt,
Yes.
trustee Nix,
Yes.
trustee Wakeman,
Yes.
trustee Beckman,
Yes.
trustee Lane,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Dean,
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consideration of resolution number 24-19 regarding case number 2024 V30-327 filed in Weld County District Court. This is an executive session. I will take a motion.
I move that we enter in executive session pursuant to section 24-6-402, subparagraph 4E of the Colorado Revised Statutes for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and instructing negotiators with respect to case number 2024 CV 30327, filed in Weld District Court by Milliken Investors LLC, and related matters pertaining to the development agreement to which the plaintiff and the town are parties, and section 24-6-4024B for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the town attorney on specific legal questions related to the same.
I second.
Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Nix.
Yes.
Trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Trustee Beckman.
Yes.
Trustee Lane.
Yes.
Trustee Orcutt.
This is where I recuse myself?
Yes.
Okay, I have to recuse myself from this matter since I have a financial interest in it.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, in the meeting will be Town Administrator Cheryl Powell, Town Clerk Carrie Reinbarger, Community Development Director Pepper McClanahan, Streets and Facilities Director John Rabus, Parks Director Keith Staggs, Town Attorney Matthew Gould, Trustee Lane, Trustee Nix, Trustee Wakeman, Trustee Beckman, Mayor Pro Tem Dean, and myself. We will break to clear the room. And then everybody's recording. All right, I'm opening up for discussion on resolution number 24-19. Comments from the board, starting with Trustee Wakeman.
No specific comments.
Okay. Trustee Beckman?
I don't have any comments.
Trustee Lane?
No comments, I guess.
Trustee Nix?
No comments.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean? Some discussion.
Yes, I do have discussion.
Yes, thank you.
I don't really know what to say.
Well, this has gone on way too long, and we need to proceed to bring it to a head to get this resolved. And this resolution, I think, will help move it along. So I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution number 24-19, a resolution of the town of Milliken, Colorado, granting additional litigation authority to town attorney.
I second.
Town Clerk, please call for a vote.
Trustee Wakeman.
Yes.
Trustee Beckman.
Yes.
Trustee Lane.
Yes.
Trustee Nix.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dean.
Yes.
Mayor Austin.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Any board reports for this month, or this meeting? Any meetings attended? Any goings on in town? Okay, the Milliken Events Committee has announced its honorees. We will be doing a special edition for the Breeze, and we are about to start releasing a number of announcements about activities going on at the event. So we'll do a heavy media campaign. That's all I have on that.
I'll
So-
have the booth sign up for the next meeting.
The what?
The town booth sign up for you at the next meeting for Beef and Bean Day.
Oh,
For us.
who's working?
Yes.
Yes, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty, if there's no further business to be brought before the board, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to it. Go for it.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?